Here are the solutions to sample midterm 3B, problems 12 to 15. So when we're doing problems like this, finding cosine of 5 pi over 4, we want to place 5 pi over 4 on the unit circle. So I'm going to draw on the unit circle a pizza with 8 slices because it's over 4. So already when I draw a circle on the xy axis, it has 4 slices. So now I'll add 2 more slices and 2 more lines, get 8 slices. And I always start on the positive x-axis and I go around counterclockwise. I'm going to count out 5 points to get to 5 pi over 4. And now I need to figure out which point is that on the unit circle. So because the x and the y coordinates are the same, I know that this will be root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2. Now I need to figure out if that's supposed to be positive or negative. So because I'm on the left, I know that x is negative, and because I'm below the x-axis, I know that y is negative. So now cos 5 pi over 4 is just the x-coordinate on the unit circle. So I look at the x-coordinate, and it's negative root 2 over 2, so that's my value of cosine of 5 pi over 4. If I want to check and see if that is actually correct, what I'll do is I'll type in cos 5 pi over 4, and I get a decimal number. And if I type negative root 2 over 2, I get the same answer. Okay, this only works if your calculator is in radian mode, so make sure to choose radian mode, otherwise this won't work. And to find the phase shift of a graph, we've got to remember that if we have a general equation, that the phase shift is how much the graph moves left or right. It's the value of c. So a lot of people will think that the phase shift is just pi, but if you notice, these two graphs are not in the same form. Here, we have one term inside the brackets, but here, we've got brackets inside the brackets. What we need to do is we need to factor out b. So b always must be factored out. So before we figure out what the phase shift is, we need to take out the 3, and in brackets write what's left over after we divide 3x by 3 becomes x, and pi, when we divide it by 3, becomes pi over 3. So we always need to write b in factored form before we decide what the phase shift is. So now we can see the phase shift is that this graph is being moved to the right pi over 3. So the phase shift is positive. So when you see a negative sign in here, then your answer for your phase shift will be positive. When you see a positive sign, then the phase shift will be negative. This is a little bit trickier to check with a calculator, but I'll show you how anyways. So what I'm going to do is go to my y equals. I'm going to type in the equation of the graph without factoring, just in case I made a mistake with my factoring. And I'm going to zoom trig, which is a good choice for trig functions. Now this is a little bit too short for the graph. I need a little bit more y values to see everything. So let's move this up to 10. Let's say. There's my graph. Okay, so phase shift is how much the graph moved, left or right. So I know that in this case my basic is negative cos, which starts on the bottom and ends on the bottom. But the lowest point is not on the y-axis anymore. It's moved to the right a little bit. So the phase shift is how far the lowest point moved away from the x or from the y-axis. So if I calculate the minimum, which is a little tricky, I have to give it a left bound, so a little bit left of the minimum, a right bound, a little bit right of the minimum, and then it will tell me what the minimum actually is. So that point moved 1.05 to the right. Okay, so let me put x here. It saved it 1.05. Hopefully that's the same thing as pi over 3 to the right. Yay, I did it right. Okay, so to find the period of a graph, we've got to remember the equation for period is the normal period divided by b. And when you're graphing sine x, the normal period is 2 pi. So most of the time we're going to see this equation as period equals 2 pi over b. This is the same for cosine. When you're doing cosine x, the normal period is 2 pi, so we'll see this as 2 pi over b. But for tangent, the normal period is only pi. So the formula for period is going to be pi over b. And in this case, b is 3, so the period will be pi over 3. So it's really a trick question, because you have to remember that cotangent and tangent both have a period of pi instead of 2 pi, like all the other graphs. So secant, cosecant, cosine, and sine all have a period of 2 pi. But tangent has a period of pi. So let's see if we can see that on the graph. So if I graph tan of 3x minus 6, and I'm going to graph this with the normal trig window, so zoom trig. That's a lot of tangent graphs. So the period will be how long it takes for that graph to complete. So that's kind of hard to see from this graph. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 tangents, 6 patterns fit from 0 to 2 pi. So if I went 2 pi over 6, because 6 of them fit, that's the same thing as pi over 3. Okay, so that's one way to confirm your answer. Now, finding the exact value of secant is another unit circle question. So we look at the bottom of the fraction, and we see that it's 6. So I'm going to draw a pizza that has double as many slices, so 12 slices. And this time, because it's -7, I'm going to go 7 points around, but clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So there's my pizza. Each quadrant is going to be broken up into 3 slices. And I always start on the positive x-axis, but this time I'm going to go clockwise because it's negative. So -3, -4, -5, -6, -7 pi over 6 is right there. So now I've got to figure out what point is that on the unit circle. So if I draw a triangle there, then the short side of that triangle is the y-coordinate. So that's 1/2. The long side of the triangle is the x-coordinate. And because it's on the left side, I know that's going to be negative. So -3 pi, -√3 over 2. So secant of -7 pi over 6 is the same thing as 1 over cosine of -7 pi over 6. And cosine is the x value. So 1 over the x-coordinate on the unit circle, which is just 1 over -√3 over 2, or 2 over -√3. You don't have to rationalize for the exam, but if you did, another way that you could write that is 2 root 3 over 3 negative. Both of those answers are correct. Now to check on your graphing calculator, we don't have a button that has secant. But what I can do is I can go 1 divided by cosine and type in negative 7 pi over 6. And hopefully I'll get 2 over negative root 3. So if I check my answer, I've got to also plug in 2 over negative root 3 and see if those numbers are the same. And they are, so I did it correctly.